Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Neighbor built a landscaping wall in my driveway and blocked access to my yard to steal my property." A little over a year ago, my husband and I found the cutest property close to all of our friends' favorite hangout bars and restaurants. It is located in a neighborhood close to this recently blossoming part of the city, and we got it for a steal. My mother always taught me to use manners and introduce myself to the neighbors. Our neighbors to the west were another young couple enjoying the up-and-coming area, and we clicked with them right away. Then we met our neighbor to the east named Julie. She is a little older than us and a single woman. She seemed really sweet and I had no issues with her at all. Although she did mention something to me fleetingly as we parted ways. She said something to the effect of, "Just make sure to talk to me before doing any work to my side yard." I'll admit I thought it was strange but decided to let it go, but the more I thought about it, the more confused I was. Her side yard was a very small portion of grass which was close to 5 feet across, and the rest was ours, a little over twice that much. When looking at the front of the house, our driveway extended into the area that she called her side yard, but it stopped when you approached the backyard where there was grass. Our backyards were obviously adjacent to hers, and she had to walk onto our side of the property in order to access her backyard. We did not mind this. She would have to rebuild her fence and gate in order to change it. We did not see any reason to fight with Julie about it at the time and thought that we would let things pass as long as she was respectful. This was unfortunately a mistake on our part because a lawyer friend pointed out later that she was likely going to keep this up long enough to document herself using our yard so that she could steal the property from underneath us. Something called adverse possession. Things were okay for a while until we decided to have the driveway paved. Before, it was some old push-down gravel and some grass, but we wanted to have a nicely paved driveway. This meant that we had to have the property marked for the concrete. I wanted to be certain of the property lines, so I hired a surveyor to clearly identify and mark what was our land and what was Julie's. Just as we suspected, we were correct. Julie's property was a little less than 5 feet and the rest was ours. The day the concrete crew came was truly a beautiful May morning. I was enjoying my tea in my new sundress and was idly observing the guys setting up to lay the concrete when I heard Julie come marching out of her front door. She skirted around the crew and walked up to me on the porch swing. "What do you think you're doing with my side yard?" Her face was flushed and her brow was pinched into a scowl. She stood with her hands on her hips and looked up at me over the porch railing. I mimicked her stance and said calmly, "It's actually mostly my yard, and I wanted to pave my driveway. I had a surveyor come out and tell me exactly what is mine and what is yours, so there should be no issues." Surprisingly, instead of her getting angry, she seemed to settle down. "Oh, I see. Well, all you had to do was talk to me, you know. That is all I ask." While she had calmed down, I still did not trust it. She had a mischievous look in her eye as she turned around to leave. Things seemed to return to cordial times for about a month, and I began to lose my suspicion that she was up to something. Until one day, my husband and I both returned home from work to find our driveway taken over by a silly-looking landscaping wall. To fit in the driveway, we had to put our driver's side tires all the way into our yard, which was sloped and awkward to maneuver safely. It's a good thing we did not have passengers because they would have had to crawl across to the other side to get out. My husband was fuming and I was pissed too, but I knew that this would not end up being an issue at all. We are easily within our legal right to destroy her landscaping wall, and I might even put up my own fence to make it even worse for her. We did not even have to go over to her place to confront her, as she was already patiently waiting outside, probably trying to record our reactions. I walked around the fence and nearly ran into her, demanding that she tell me why she did this, to which she just smiled and said that she thought it looked nice. "It is not even on your property." My husband was pissed. "Oh, it's not? My other neighbor and I used to share the side yard and they didn't have an issue." "It is right where we just had the driveway paved. It's literally on the concrete." She continued to feign ignorance and act as if she did not know that this would cause a problem. "Please have it taken down." I was proud of my husband for staying strong and not snapping too badly at our older neighbor. I cannot help but not get too upset since she acts as if she is sort of clueless, but I agree with hubby, it just seems suspicious. A few days later, Julie had the landscaping wall removed, but it did take me another time to ask her, by myself, before she went ahead with it, grumbling under her breath about how we were going to ruin the neighborhood's character or some crap like that. Again, a few weeks passed and only some subtle annoying things were happening with Julie. Like, she put her trash cans and blocked over half of our driveway, so my husband had to move them to leave for work in the morning. That happened a few weeks in a row, but she eventually stopped. Then she started letting her 2 little fluffy dogs poop in the infamous side yard, causing my husband to hilariously slip and fall on a fresh turd one foggy cold morning. Yeah, I felt bad for laughing, but come on, that's one of those things you cannot help but tease your spouse about for a while. At that point, the husband has had enough of Julie and her little dog's poop, literally. He hired a fencing crew to come out and build a huge privacy fence even further over than the driveway was. Don't worry though, we are still on our property. My husband called it the spite fence and he relished every moment of it being built. Sometimes he was even sitting on the porch swing and watching them as the view of Julie's house got smaller and smaller. I did not realize until it was completely finished that he had even paid for them to build the fence all the way to the backyard. This ended up cutting off her access to her yard, and well, technically she could get to her fence, but it was really a tight squeeze and she was not a small woman, plus the door could not open all the way now either. She ended up kicking the fence and screaming at us through it, saying that she would sue us for this and she would get the property line reduced just as a screw you. Well, needless to say, that did not work. She tried to sue us, kind of. She started the process and had a lawyer, allegedly, and even sent paperwork to our door, only for the case to be dismissed before it even made it to a courtroom. I will say that the spite fence may be a bit of an eyesore and I'm not its biggest fan, and I know that some of the other neighbors think that it was a little unnecessary, but it at least keeps someone from trying to steal our property. Plus, it makes my husband feel better. And yeah, ripe stars, if you ever had a neighbor that tried to steal your property or built ridiculous landscaping walls right next to your property or even on your property, what would you have done if you were in OP's shoes? Let us know in the comments. And while you're at it, I would also really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and maybe even like the video if you enjoy the content. Thank you so much in advance, your support is very much appreciated. The next one is titled Epic Petty Revenge. The other day I was hanging out with a neighbor friend. We were complaining about other parents, co-workers, other neighbors, and the ways we only wish we could get petty revenge on them. You know, things like X likes brownies, constantly readjusting their chair, stealing their pen, etc. Neighbor's husband NH overheard us and got really excited about a petty revenge he executed a few weeks ago and gave my permission to post his story here. NH works at some sort of global logistics company. Due to the nature of their work, only one person can be on vacation at a time, first come first serve. There's only about 20 people in his division, so it is usually not a problem. Only a small number of them have kids, so it is a bit of an unwritten rule to give priority to those with kids. Obviously, it's not enforced, but as I said, most of them don't have kids. Most of his co-workers don't mind taking their vacation January to February and September to October. But of course, there's always that one person that does not give two craps about anyone else. We will call her Shelly. NH said he swears she goes out of her way to schedule her vacation and days off when kids are out of school. NH's grandfather turns 93 this year, and like most people that age, his health is not the greatest. For spring break this year, he wanted to go out of town and visit him for what could be the last time. At the beginning of the year, he put in the request for that week off, but gets denied because Shelly had put in for that time off a few days prior. NH knows he's pretty much SOL, but he reaches out to HR and asks if he could offer to give Shelly some of his PTO in exchange for this week. Shelly responds back to HR nastily, "It is my vacation time. First come, first serve. There's nothing on this earth that will stop me from using my PTO." Fine, fair is fair. He then planned for his wife and kids to visit his grandfather without him. But leading up to spring break, NH was getting more and more annoyed with Shelly. She was constantly bragging about the cruise she had planned, what she and her boyfriend planned to do, how expensive this cruise would be because of which cruise line they were taking, and how they had a fancy room. She talked about it every single day whenever NH was within earshot, just to rub salt in the wound. If you don't know, a lot of cruise lines require a COVID test 48 hours in advance. If you're positive, no cruise for you. Surprise, surprise, Shelly tests positive. She asked HR if she could change her PTO to sick leave, but all HR did was throw her words back at her. "Sorry, you told us that there was nothing on earth that would stop you from using your PTO." The icing on the cake, because she had talked so extensively about this cruise, NH knew pretty much everything about this trip. A couple weeks before Shelly was expected to leave, he looked up the dates this cruise line would be sailing out for the rest of the year and scheduled a couple days off in the middle of each cruise trip. When I asked him why, he laughed and said he hated feeling so helpless and he was mad, and this was the only thing he could think of to do out of spite that won't get him in trouble. So when Shelly came back from quarantine, she had tried to put in another PTO requests to make up the cruise, but of course she was denied because NH had put in for the dates before her. She tried to approach him about it, but all he said was, "Sorry, first come, first serve." I would like to say she learned some sort of lesson from all this, however, NH says she hasn't. The next one is titled, "She Stole My Easter Eggs." A similar story I saw recently reminded me of this. It happened in 2015, so pre-pandemic. By the way guys, I love how you have to say pre-pandemic even though 2015 was so long ago. But then again, this pandemic is going on for pretty long already as well. Anyway, the day before Easter, my wife and I helped our kids make colored eggs. Some we dyed, some we painted, and others were just plastic with candy. But my kids doodled little faces on them for fun. On Easter morning, my wife and I went to my parents' house because they live on the edge of the city, right next to some woods. And they've got a good 2-acre property with a few scattered apple trees, a garden, a play structure for the kids my dad hand-built, and some decent-sized bushes. Perfect for hiding eggs in. We spent a good hour in the morning placing the eggs in clever but also easy to find places for the kids. We also invited a friend of my wife, who was a single mom with a little girl, to join in. And she was overjoyed that we invited her. We took a little break to have a coffee and chat after hiding the eggs, as we had planned to go out looking for them at noon since it was a little chilly that morning. However, my mom suddenly came to us and said there was a lady with kids she had never seen before hunting for the eggs in the backyard. And her kids were using the baskets we had set aside for our own egg hunt. They had been left sitting by the garden for when the hunt was to start, and those thieving little brats just took them without a care. I told my wife to pull out her phone and start recording just in case. My wife and I have both dealt with entitled people long before seeing stories on Reddit, so having video evidence can really help. We then went outside and I demanded to know just what the hell this woman was thinking. The Karen mom was startled when I called out to her, but then got mad at us when I told her to put the eggs back, as she was not invited. Since this was 7 years ago, I'll have to paraphrase most of it as my memory can be pretty bad at times. Me: "Hey, what do you think you're doing here? This is private property." Karen: "Huh, don't sneak up on me, what is wrong with you?" Me: "What's wrong with me? You are trespassing on private property and letting your kids steal our eggs." By this point, her 2 crotch goblins had run to hide behind her, and they were blowing raspberries at me. Me: "Give those eggs back, they are not yours." Karen: "What's wrong with you? They are just little kids. I could not afford to give them a good Easter this year."
And when we saw all of the eggs you were hiding, I just thought maybe you could share. Besides, they're just eggs. Go to the store and get more.
Me, my family lovingly colored and painted those eggs all day yesterday, and you'll give them back, or so help me. And then the Karen actually slapped me across the face and stomped on my foot at the same time. I got bullied a fair bit as a kid, so it did not faze me nearly as much as she thought, plus she could not stomp or hit very hard at all, so all that just made me angrier. And I'm pretty sure she realized she badly effed up because she started backing away. Me, last chance, return the eggs now. Karen,
no, my babies got them first.
I was done with this crap and turned to tell my family to just call the police. The Karen started shouting at me that we cannot call the police over some stupid eggs. My dad then went and blocked the side gate, which is how the Karen had gotten in the first place. We don't know how she was spying on us since she was not even a neighbor to my parents. But when we refused to let her leave, she started screaming hysterically that we were illegally detaining her. The police arrived in about 10 minutes and by then the Karen had huddled with her kids on the bench by the garden. My wife showed the cops the video of the Karen slapping me and they quickly told her she was under arrest and forced her kids to give back the eggs and baskets. The Karen started screaming that it was not fair and she just wanted a happy Easter for her kids. Her little crotch goblins did not make things easy for the police either, as they tried to hit them for arresting their mom. We made a few statements and the police carted off the Karen and her family. Then we re-hid all of the eggs. Which took longer because we had to double check any places we had already hidden eggs to see if they were not there. The kids were all super upset that someone tried to steal their eggs too, and it took some work to calm them down. But they all still got their Easter egg hunt and all was well. The Karen though more or less got off easy. She pled guilty and only got a month in jail and a fine, and during court I found out from her soon-to-be ex-husband that they were in the middle of a divorce that Karen had been intentionally dragging out. After court we did not see or hear from any of them again, but I'd like to think that the situation gave the dad the edge he needed in the divorce. And it's become a funny story we like to share with people once in a while. And the next one is titled Revenge Story Number 4. I once started a tech company and developed a very marketable product. Being a techie who couldn't sell his way out of a paper bag, after about 4 years I eventually found a couple of partners to work with to help market and promote the business based on my tech and take things to the next level. They didn't buy their way in, my first mistake, and our contract was not written with adequate protection for me, my second mistake, since we were all friends and I never thought anything bad would happen. We still had our day jobs and things were progressing nicely on building a business while we each still had day jobs. We were starting to be successful and edging towards the ability to make quit your job kind of money. After a while, my partners started acting strangely and started floating the great idea to form a new business, form a new LLC, and roll our existing successful business into it as one of the offerings which we would all make zillions from. They talked it up for weeks and eventually sent me a lengthy and confusing contract to sign. I knew right away the ideas for the other offerings for the new business were losers and got the suspicion that the only reason they wanted to do this was because they wanted to exploit the revenue from the existing emerging business and do away with me in the partnership. I smelled a rat and my spidey senses were tingling. Since one of my roles was system admin, I spent one afternoon perusing their email on our server and in a matter of minutes I found hard evidence of their plot to perform the aforementioned merger and promptly make use of a clause which would allow them to vote me out and leave me high and dry. It certainly explained why they were champing at the bit for me to hurry up and just sign the new contract already. Closer scrutiny of the proposed contract showed that they would have been able to screw me out of the deal with no payout and leave me with nothing. They were going to shaft me out of 8k hours of development time and were going to be making money off my technology for who knows how long. I immediately picked my jaw off the floor, did some research, went to a lawyer and devised a plan for me to be able to walk away from the partnership and operate the business on my own. This was tricky and took away too much time and money because of the lack of protection I had due to a lousy contract between us. I was successful and was able to oust them, and I still operate the business to this day all on my own. Here is the revenge part. My now former partners went on to start their new business. One of the evil partners still had a day job as VP of sales at a company in the same industry as the new company they were building. I won't say who or what industry, but this was a clear conflict of interest in a narrow business space. This person was mining the Rolodex and stealing clients away with the goal of jumping ship and running the new company with the purloined client base. I knew all of this, and this was one of the reasons I didn't want to merge companies to begin with, since this behavior is illegal, unethical, and just plain icky. I waited a suitable amount of time to distance myself from the situation, then sent a package to the owner of the company, for which the evil partner still worked and provided evidence to their efforts to undermine and steal all their clients. Results were as expected. Evil partner was fired and sued. This was years ago, and every time I remember what almost happened to me and the bullet that I dodged, I just laugh and thank my lucky stars. The fact that I was able to give it right back to evil partner makes me smile. So yes, revenge can be satisfying when applied to well-deserving a-holes. Moral of the story: even if you have trust in your partners, money changes things. Get a lawyer and have a real contract written up to protect yourself. Don't try to screw over your partner if they can read your mail, or at least use Gmail when doing so. Reading others' mail is wrong, don't do it unless you have to.
Meowing a lot today. Because she wants some food in the morning. Oh, her toenails are really sharp. Like Disney. I think she's hungry. Not hungry? Or somebody just need attention. I think somebody just needs attention. Or hungry too. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.
And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.